Today's Browns Report is all about possible Baker Mayfield replacements. Because listen, I'm a man of the people. I want to be a voice for the fans. I don't have a voice. I don't have a YouTube channel. But I do want to explore what it would look like if the Browns wanted to go a different direction. So if you're tired of Baker, or if you still believe in Baker, I'll give you my opinion in just a moment. This is a video you should watch because I'm going to go through all the possible, realistic alternatives. You're not going to get Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. So what the three different routes would look like. Here's the deal with Baker. It was awful on Christmas. That was not a present. That was cold. We all know that. But I do believe, for example, that second interception driving down the red zone where he just completely overthrows his man, that was a very big obvious sign of his heel is still very bad because he talked about how at points his foot injury was worse than his shoulder injury, and he really couldn't plant off his back foot, and that's why he got a bad interception. But at the end of the day with Baker, my 2 cents are, who are you going to get that's better? That's question number one. If there's no one better, then you got to stick with Baker. 2, is he worthy of a first overall pick? No. I don't think he is. But this is the Browns quarterback room we're talking about that hasn't had much success, and we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but we all know how long it's been. So you don't want to ditch a good thing you have going, even if it's not as good as you would like it to be. So personally, I'm continuing to believe in Baker and sticking with Baker. But if you don't, you're not wrong. I just don't know what a better option is out there. Because Baker this year hasn't been pretty. Up until Saturday on Christmas Day, he was pretty good with the football, actually. But 4 interceptions will balloon that column up. He just hasn't made those big swagger plays that we saw a lot of last year, right? The first half against the Titans was fun. Haven't had that this year. So coming up, I've got trade options. I've got draft options and free agency options. All 3 routes the Browns could go down if they wanted to replace Baker Mayfield. Let's start with trade options because let's face it, trading is fun. We play it in Madden. We play it in real life. It's a lot of fun to trade. So 5 realistic trade options-ish. Russell Wilson, I don't think it's very likely he ends up in Seattle next year. I do think he wants out, and the way the Seahawks are playing right now, it looks like he doesn't want to stick around. Deshaun Watson, I did a video on him, my last video. That one is in the comments and the description of this video, so click on that if you want to watch the latest Deshaun Watson trade rumor. Aaron Rodgers, he looked like he wanted to go after this year, so let's see if that still holds true, despite the Packers looking like the Super Bowl favorites right now. Matt Ryan, maybe the Falcons just want to change of pace. And Jimmy Garoppolo, you got Trey Lance, you got to play him at some point. The thing with Cleveland, though, if they want to explore the trade route, they don't have much draft capital to offer. They don't have anyone else's first or second or third round picks. They've only got their picks this year and a couple late picks from the Lions. That's not a lot of money to play with. You don't bring a ton to the poker table. Let's say you do trade away your first and your second, which, by the way, aren't that early. They're kind of middle of the pack. I'll show you later. This year and then next year, the team that they trade, let's say they send it to Seattle. The Seahawks are going to get a middle of the pack first-round pick this year and then a late first-round pick next year because the hope is Russell Wilson takes the Browns to the playoffs next year. I don't think the Seahawks would want to do that. But speaking of Baker Mayfield, the big question, is Baker Mayfield the franchise quarterback? This is the pinned comment on today's video. So if a YouTube ad break comes right now, go on down while the ad rolls. Type your Y's for yes or your N's for no. Like I said, I'm not giving up just yet on Baker Mayfield. I do think the injuries this year have played a major factor in why we're seeing a bit of a bad Baker. I think 2 things can be true. I think Baker being worth a first overall pick is a bust in that regard. True. Not worthy of a first overall pick from what we've seen out of him. But I do think Baker Mayfield can be a very serviceable and a playoff winning quarterback. Because guess what? We've seen him do that. It's just this season has fallen sideways. You have a handful of 1-score losses and the injuries piled on each other. Shit at the fan. Plain and simple. I'm not ready to give up Baker just yet. Looking at some of those trade options, Russell Wilson. He was rumored last year to want to get out of Seattle. His wife, Sierra, she's a musical artist, and I don't think Seattle offers much celebrity lifestyle for Sierra, so maybe he wants out. The thing with that is, I think the way he's playing right now, he's already asked the movers to come and pack up his house because he doesn't look like he wants to be in Seattle long term. Now, there is a catch with this. He does have a no-trade clause, which doesn't mean that he can't be traded. It means he has to approve any trade. So if Russell Wilson doesn't want to go to Cleveland and the Browns offer the Seahawks the biggest package, that's what she said, I don't envision Russell Wilson wanting to sign off on this because it looks like he wants to be in a huge market, right? He wants to be in New York or Chicago. And I don't know if Cleveland can really compete with that in Sierra and Russell's eyes, just from not a team standpoint, but a city standpoint. Next one, Deshaun Watson. Talked about him in my last video. We'll kind of go through this quickly, but he's got a ton of legal stuff. We're not going to dive into that because that would take a whole video. But I just don't know if the Browns are going to be interested in trading for someone who's got all that baggage, and that the fan base would be very receptive to that. Albert Breer went on 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, said that he thinks the Browns would be all in on trying to land Deshaun Watson, but once again, we land too. Watson has a no-trade clause, which means if Watson doesn't want to go to Cleveland, he ain't going to Cleveland. And I don't know if Cleveland would be a team he'd want to go to. Last offseason, when the Watson trade saga news broke, the Browns were not even close to being interested because Baker Mayfield just won a playoff game and had them down the stretch in Kansas City in the playoffs. Now things have changed. That's how the NFL works. His original list had Carolina, Miami, Denver on it. Maybe even Pittsburgh. I pray to God, not Pittsburgh. I just don't know if Watson wants to be a Brownie. But here's the deal. We're going to have Browns content all year long. So if you want Browns draft and off-season coverage, then subscribe to the channel today. Help us grow this awesome Cleveland Browns channel. At least that's what my mom tells me. Hit that big red button and subscribe if you have not already. And if you have, we appreciate you so much here at the Browns Report. I love what I do, and it's all thanks to you guys. On to the third and biggest trade candidate, Aaron Rodgers. So he had a falling out with the Green Bay front office this past offseason. He wanted a trade. The Packers wouldn't trade him. There was that whole dilemma, and he said he's not coming. We all know what happened there. But it looked like, hey, Rodgers and Green Bay said, all right, let's just get through this year, and we'll ship you off after next year, after the season. But he's got the Packers looking like the top team in the NFL right now, so maybe he doesn't want to leave. I don't know if it's a Super Bowl or bust, or if they lose in the NFC Championship game again, then he will leave. Anyway, it's very difficult to speculate at this point because of how well the Packers are doing. I think if Green Bay was a mediocre playoff-ish caliber team, then yeah, it would look like he'd be out after this year. Now, the interesting thing about Rodgers, he does not have a no-trade clause, which means the Packers can trade him to whoever they want to trade him to. Now, I do believe they will, confer with Rodgers and go, where do you want to go? Where do you not want to go? Because he's given the franchise so much. But if Cleveland comes in with the best offer, which kind of is unlikely because we talked about their lack of draft capital, then I don't see a way he ends up in Cleveland. But it would be fun to see that, no doubt about it. But who do you want? Which quarterback would you want the Browns to trade for? I talked about those three big ones right there. Now, there is Matt Ryan and Jimmy Garoppolo. Just the thing with them is I don't know how sexy and I don't know how much of an upgrade they really are to Baker Mayfield, if they are an upgrade. So I don't know if GM Andrew Berry wants to make a big move for someone that's a lateral move. It just doesn't seem to make much sense to me. Let me know what you're thinking down below. We've got great deals going on with our friends at Fanatics still. $65 for this awesome hoodie. Now, I get it. The holiday season has passed, but still, you got a little extra Christmas dough. I think we all got some checks from Grandma, maybe. So head on over to chatsports.com/Browns hoodie. Use that link, $65. Get this awesome hoodie. I'll have that link in the comments and the description of this video. Moving on, shifting gears. You don't want to trade for a quarterback? No problem. Let's see if we can draft a quarterback because the NFL draft's coming up and the Browns have some interesting routes to go through, okay? We'll check out where the Browns rank. We'll look at the top prospects according to Mel Kiper's big board because he puts one out kind of every couple months right now, every month and a half. It'll ramp up as we get closer to the draft. But here's Mel Kiper's top quarterbacks, okay? He's got his number 1 through number 5 list with Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh being his top guy. Here's my take on this. If Kenny Pickett is number 1 this year, I don't think he'd be number 5 in last year's class. And we know how great last year's class is, but you can't force a quarterback pick. And Cleveland knows that. I don't want to do the Brandon Weeden experiment again. Didn't work, okay? So you don't want to just feel the need to pick a quarterback if it's not the right guy. I have faith in Barry picking a good quarterback. I have faith in him. He's made some very smart and sound decisions. But the other ones, Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati, he's athletic, but I don't know. It's just, it's not very appealing. Matt Corral and Malik Willis. I think Willis is a very interesting one. He's very athletic, and he's balling out with 0 NFL caliber around him. So that's a very close one to keep your eye on. And then Matt Corral seems to be very good at a lot of things, but doesn't really jump off the page at anything. Here's the current NFL draft order, though. Current, meaning if the draft was tomorrow, here's where the Browns would pick. This can change, of course, as teams will win and lose throughout the next 2 weeks, but the Browns will be picking 13th. I don't know if you're going to get the quarterback you want at 13. Maybe you move up to get a guy, but this NFL draft class isn't that appealing. And that's why I am just not in love with this draft class. It hasn't been what it was built up to be. Sam Howell and we got Caden Slovis from USC, and then the guy from Oklahoma, I'm blanking on his name right now, Spencer Rattler were the big three guns, and not only one of them's in the top 5. The rest kind of fell out and weren't that good. So it looks like we're just forcing a top 5. It doesn't really seem like there is a good quarterback in this class. And don't be mistaken, there can be bad classes. There was a class that had E.J. Manuel going in the first round. E.J. Manuel's probably selling some sort of insurance right now, so I'm just not in love with this class. But let me know. You've heard what I had to say. I want to know what you have to say. Do you want the Browns to draft a quarterback? The draft can be a crapshoot. I can be completely full of crap right now, and next year we'll see these guys balling out because Watson and Mahomes weren't perceived as great quarterbacks, and we know how that story ended. D for draft or P for pass. Third and final route. Free agency. I had to bring myself to do this because it is not a pretty list. It is tough. It is not what you want to see out there on the open market. Maybe some players will get cut and there'll be some better alternatives, but it is not a very good free agency class. It's just plain and simple, okay? But here's who you got. If you wanted to sign someone, you can go to Andy Dalton. Bring an AFC North quarterback back. Tyrod Taylor, you want to run that back? Probably not. You saw what you had. Wasn't great. Wasn't bad. It just middle of the road, and none of these guys are upgrades to Baker Mayfield. Jameis Winston's the only one that has a peculiarly curious high ceiling, okay? When Jameis Winston's on, he's tossing touchdowns all over the place. The issue is he tosses just as many interceptions. He's in the 30 for 30 club. So let me know what you think. If any of these guys are worth appealing. You have a former second overall pick in Trubisky, but again, none of these guys are upgrades to Baker. I really don't think they are. So that's the free agency class. And that's why I don't think Barry's going to go out and sign a big name because, one, there aren't any big names. And two, none of those names are better than Baker Mayfield, which brings me back to my original question. Who are you going to get that's better? If you can land Wilson or Rodgers or Watson and Watson gets figured out, yeah, I'm all for it. Those guys are better than Baker Mayfield. The rest of the names, I don't know.